use this situation to figure out an equation, and then hopefully make a kind of see the shape that's going with this. So it said records start being kept at a time of t equals 0. A minimum number of foxes appeared when t was 3. So after 3 years, 200 foxes was our minimum amount. It said the next maximum, 800 foxes, occurred at 5.5 years. So like this information here is really some of the important information we're going to work with. Now when they're talking about 0 years, 3 years, 5 years, I probably don't want to just use a very little small portion of my graph. So what I'm going to do is kind of try to space this out a little bit more. So I'm going to go kind of every other. So I'm going to call this 1 year, just to kind of space this out. It doesn't look like we're doing this over the course of 50 years. And then we need to figure out the side. So the minimum value of foxes was 200. The maximum was 800. So that kind of helps us determine our spacing up the side of this graph. So in this case, probably like just going up maybe by like hundreds, or even skipping a couple and going up by 100 I think would work okay. So if this is 200, so every 2 is 100. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I know that's as high as I have to go, so I don't need to go any higher. So I'm trying to use as much of my graph as I possibly can. So we have a couple coordinate points we can already put on our graph. So they tell me at 3 years there was 200 foxes. So across the bottom would be my time. And then my other one is at 5.5 years there were 800 foxes. So I have 2 coordinate points I can put on my graph. So they give me a low to a high.
Yeah, new.
So 3, 200. Bigger. And then 5.5, 800. Now that one little chunk of a curve doesn't seem like very much, but they've really given us a lot here, actually. Any thoughts on what else we would know? Or what else we can kind of fill in here that you're aware of? Yeah. What's that? We can figure out the amplitude, right? Because we have the high and low. So we should be able to figure out the amplitude. Now the graph, I'd be hesitant to draw a graph quite yet. I only have 2 dots and it's not a straight line. They told us it has a sine shape to it. Now sine and cosine are kind of interchangeably in terms of a shape, interchangeable. So the amplitude we should be able to figure out, we should be able to then figure out like a midline. So we go high 800 minus the 200 divide by 2. So our amplitude's going to be 300. So high to low, it's 300.
Yep.
So below the 800, above the 200, so I'm going to draw a line at 500. So that's our midline. Anyone figure out how we figure out what's going on over here? So I know if this has like a sine or cosine shape to it, I should be able to figure out like the left side of this. I don't know if you guys can see that. My little dot is kind of hiding there in my sign or my smart book. How do I figure out what the period is?
Good question.
So if this is low to high, what's going on this side?
It's gonna go up.
It's going to go up.
So it'll go over 2.5 years. So, right?
So 3 to, this was 5.5, so 3 to 5.5, so that'd be 2.5 years. We're going to go backwards 2.5 years. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So frontwards 3.5, backwards 3.5. So, and it's going to get back up to that maximum value again. So I'm going to go back to, it'd be at like the half year mark. So at this point, I probably could draw a pretty good sine curve, or I actually would probably call this what kind of curve? Yeah, I would say it looks a little bit more like a cosine graph. And that would make more sense to me in terms of like what to use as my equation. So what's our period then? It's 5 years. Our period is 5 years. So if I know that about my period there, I need to figure that out. I need to figure out the b value. So 5 over 1 equals 2 pi over b. Cross multiply. So to get my b alone, I find out b is 2 pi over 5. Now again, I would probably call this a cosine graph because it's starting up and it's ending back up. Now obviously it's going to go back down, but in my opinion this looks easier to talk about cosine graph. Now if the amplitude is 300, where would the cosine graph typically start? 0, 1, but not 0, 1 in this case. If the amplitude is 300, where would it start? 0, 300. Typically, it would start here because the amplitude is how high it goes. So we actually need to, so this would be our normal starting spot if this was a normal cosine graph. And so I need to move over and up, right? What's that?
That's the amplitude.
Yeah, because normally cosine looks like this, right? Where this is 0, 1. But if that was actually 300, that's how high we'd be, right? So, how much over do I need to go? A half of a year, right? So I'm going right 0.5. And then up
500.
500, maybe? Yeah. You're scaring me. Up 500.
I was looking at something.
Yeah.
I'm sure you were.
We all were looking at something.
I was looking at the bottom and then it's 200.
That's
above
cap.
the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're
Nice cap, yo.
Alright. So we're ready to write our equation.
don't talk to them like that, John.
So y equals, and again, I'm using cosine if that helps. That should be a B. Alright. So our amplitude we decided was 300. Cosine, again, we chose cosine just because that was our general shape here. Now, a sine graph would work, it's a little harder to visualize what exactly is happening for a cosine, or sine. Our b value is this 2 pi over 5 x. Now the c value does the opposite of what we expect, so negative 0.5, and then up 500.
Let's go.
Okay.
Woohoo.
What?
Yippee-ki-yay.
Cos.
We're not going to do a whole nother page. Okay.
X minus 0.5 plus
All right.
5.
We'll save this example for another day. It'll be okay.
So are you, Dad?
I gotta say, that wasn't too bad.
I gotta say.
I gotta say,
I gotta agree.
you are bad.
I got
What happened?
I know.
What? Where's Grandma? Hey. I remember this. Oh, I remember this one.
Yeah.
This is the. Yeah. I think I still have all my homework at home. So.
I think my dog ate my
Alright. So guys, I would suggest trying to get a start on some of these word problems while you guys are here. So that you can ask each other for help. Oh, I didn't send one back for Amy. You get up and move every time I get past that homework. Yeah.
I don't know if I'll be here tomorrow.
Oh my gosh.
She's gonna be out
You
sick.
got more interviews? No big deal.
No, my orthopedic.
Interview with Griffin or what?
I thought it was on Wednesday, but I guess it was tomorrow. Cool.
Dude, this sucker's F.
Okay. So again, guys, I would suggest trying to work with somebody.
Jesus.
Okay.